Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome back to our Working Together series live from the Netiv Zoo Room out of Houston, Texas. We're just waiting on Rabbi Ingber to show up. Of late, we've been going through different points in his book, Where the Heavens Kiss the Earth. Excellent material. But I believe today the Rabbi mentioned he's only going to discuss current situation and talk about the upcoming election in the U.S., which is always a joy to hear from Rabbi Ingber on such material. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Ingber's here in the room. So, yeah, let's just... I'm shut my video off so he can... Shalom, Rabbi Ingber. How are you doing? So good to be with you. We're going to turn it over to you, sir.
How are we all doing?
Good.
Good. I hope everyone's doing well. So, as Dan just said, first of all, as far as where we're holding with the mindsets we're talking about, we did the first four. Number 5, 6, and 7 are really I say difficult, but they need a lot of work, a lot of explanation. So what I'm going to do is over the next few times, we're going to still focus on 1, 2, 3, and 4 to get those. I'm going to repeat what they are. The first one, I need people to say what their purpose is. Okay, people, I would like them to figure out. Now, again, you might say to me, listen, I don't know. That's true. And the truth is, we don't know exactly. But what we have to do is try to make a definition of right now, why did God put me here? What should I be doing? It's going to change over time, but if you have a plan, then you can arrive where you have to be. So we're going to work on purpose. The second one was unique qualities that determine what your purpose in life is. The third one we did was the idea of all your challenges are tailor-made to where you are. And last week, we did the very important one, understanding that there's divine providence, that God is sending you love letters. Every person you're running into is a lesson for you. So I'm not going to go to the fifth one now because fifth, sixth, and seventh one are very high level. Let's work on the first four. And over time, I'll give classes on various things and we'll touch on this topic to understand it better. But today, I feel that we have to deal with the situation in the world right now. Now, I don't really know if there's anybody in America that really can still be on the fence. I don't really know. I don't really know that if there is such a thing at this point. But I figured if there is, it really is my duty to try to explain a little bit the importance of voting properly in this election. So I want to talk about a little bit what's going on, the importance of this election. Again, there's a balance in everything we always talk about. God runs the show, but God puts us in a situation where we have to step up and do certain things. And therefore, it's very, very important that people who are in America vote. People who are not, Stephen, I think you're in England, right, Stephen? Right. So England's got its own problems. But it's important to understand the dynamics to be able to figure out what's going on in this world. So first, I don't know, Dan, if there is anybody there, and we're not going to yell at them, if there's anybody watching here who is undecided, or who thinks they should vote for Kamala Harris, I would love to hear why. So I don't know if there is in this group. I think generally Noachides would be more leaning towards a reality that talks about things that are closer to certain morals that are not found so much in the Democratic Party. But Dan, maybe if somebody is there that is undecided, let me please hear what is your debate. Okay, because I would love, Rod, if we say something that's worthwhile, if we can cut it here and give a short a presentation to anybody in the world that may see it, that we may influence a few people here, because it's probably going to be close. And we got to make our efforts right now to really to stand up and to take the country back, because it's really out of hand right now. So if anyone is on the fence, let me hear your questions, what you're not sure about. If anyone is thinking of voting for Kamala Harris, please tell me why, so I could understand. And until we get that, I'm going to say what I think is people's big hesitation, and hopefully I'll try to explain it, and maybe it'll resonate with someone to influence them properly. So I looked just now at a person that I know who suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. I looked at his posts, and he really suffers from this disease clearly. And I tried to read what his rationale was. This is what I got. What I understood was there were many things there that were completely bizarre and not true. For example, you can call Trump a lot of things, but this guy calls him a coward. Yeah, that's a little rough, the guy's been shot, shot in the head, and sitting there and scream, fight, fight, fight. So it's a little bit. So I understand then that means there are many brainwashing concepts from the media. And this we have to understand. And this is a Torah principle I've told you before. It says, Kol ha-posel v'mo-posel, whoever disqualifies someone, and they see the flaw very often, they are doing it with their own flaw in mind. I cannot, what's happened over these past few years, that every single thing that he's been accused of as being done by the other side is so obvious. I mean, the Russia, and then the old dossier was fake Russian disinformation. Every time Al Gore, Hillary Clinton saying that the election was stolen, and then he says the election is not honest. So you see clearly this concept. So there's so much stuff that is medialized. So the first thing I want to encourage anybody who is voting, I want to encourage anyone who has not decided to vote for Donald Trump, because all the negative things they hear from the media, they have to understand the media has literally been caught lying in every single thing over this past years. Everything from the point of the coronavirus is definitely, it's insane to say it comes from the lab. I knew that day one. Anyone who was thinking knew that. But if you said it, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. Every single thing that they've said has turned out to be not true. Russia. It was a Russia hoax. No, it was not true. If you look at every single thing that we've been hearing. So when you hear stuff from the media, you have to understand that they have a different agenda. So if you're voting based on what you hear in the media, first thing is that's not they do not stand the test of integrity. That's one. Now, what I did hear from people why they are so anti-Trump and why they are thinking voting against him. The only thing I heard from people was he's not a nice guy. They said it in stronger ways, statements that he's made, whatever, various things, a bigot, a racist, all the things. Now, the bigot racist thing is completely absurd. The Nazi claim, as a person who is a child of Holocaust survivors, my mother, Alas Shalom, who was in Auschwitz before she passed away, was a big fan of President Trump. She thought the man was straight to the point. So that whole insanity, the Nazi, and the bigot. It's all also media hype. How do you know it? Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, like, he's got a Jewish daughter, he got Jewish grandkids, did more for Israel than any other president in America. So that's all another story, as is the whole racist stuff. If you go look at old clips, you will see, Jesse Jackson, various other leaders in the black community celebrating Donald Trump for what he did for the community, the black community. So that this stuff is also media hoax. But where is there some truth? Because very often a lie has a little bit of truth to it. So where's a little bit of truth? Well, Trump, can be a little bit, egocentric sounding, boisterous, boasting, and that gets people very, very, very upset. So I wanna respond to that because that's what I think is anyone who doesn't want to vote for Trump, it's pretty much on the personality traits they see. So I want to respond to that. If anyone out there is thinking of voting for Kamala Harris because they don't like Trump because of his traits, I want to give you a few rebuttals for that. First of all, this is not a vote for your wife, your spouse, your husband. This is not somebody that you are voting for on how you get along with, if you enjoy being with the person. The fact that Trump is a tough character and he will take on people like Xi and Putin and Kim Jong Un. So all that's a good quality. So the fact that he has maybe personality flaws that everyone has, and he maybe have more, may have less, that should not be the deciding factor in this election. And when I was reading people who were anti-Trump, the whole thing was they didn't like his personality. So the first thing you have to do is you have to realize the issues. The issues are the point. And no one, and they're not talking about the issues, the economy, the crime, the inflation, the legal immigration. All of this stuff is the concept you have to vote for. So therefore, if his traits are not so good, that in this context, it doesn't matter. It's not the issue. That's one. Two, you cannot believe politicians. So politicians, when they come along and they go, oh, they're very good because they say this, they say that, we all know that that's a fake. This guy, Trump, does not have filters on what he says. He says what he thinks. And a politician is trained to double talk. So to believe that when you see these guys talking, the politicians talking about these things is true, it's completely not. We have no evidence at all that just because they talk a game of love and stuff, that's true. It's clearly not true. How do I know it's not true? Because when they're pushed on it, you see what comes out. You see what comes out. You see how they feel about, Trump supporters being garbage, or you see how they feel about, the hatred that comes out is very palpable. So that's the second point. The third point that you also, if anyone's on the fence about voting, is that Trump has aligned himself with people that are well spoken, some like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk, who are well spoken, measured in what they say. And the fact is a coalition of people who are hitting on the issues that are so crucial right now, which are the lies that were being sold. They're taking your money, shipping it off to someplace else in a war that they know is going to have to end in a ceasefire, and they're getting everyone killed. It's unbelievable. So what happens is that the coalition around him are people that you can say this is not just I'm voting for one guy. There is a group of people that have come together and they're demonstrating the like-mindedness and not getting into, okay, is his personality abrasive, is not abrasive, is his boisterous, not boisterous. Those aren't the issues. So what I hear from people that are hesitant, their biggest issue is the issue of his personality. And for those three reasons, that's not a reason not to vote for him. It's the reason to vote for him is because the issues at hand are that serious. They are serious where the world is literally on the brink of war. Yes, as a rabbi, a spiritual person, we understand that God is directing the show. We understand that. The positive redemption will happen one way or another, but it's fairly clear that if it's going to be through the blessing of compassion in a more gentle way, God willing, it seems to be the obvious thing. It will be coming through trumping in presidency, as opposed to some people that support concepts and policies that lead to war, inflation, and terrorism. Really, so that's my pitch here for anyone that is on the fence. If you know that anyone on the fence, please share that with them. And if anyone is on the fence or any other thoughts about what should happen here, I'm open to start taking questions and I'll elaborate more as we go. So let's open it up to everybody. What do you think about this situation in the world or anything else?
Rabbi, we've got a good crew on YouTube. Some comments, but nobody's said they're voting for Harris. Remember, there's a 30-second lag between what you say here and before they get it. So,
Okay.
Yeah, YouTube's got.
So what do we got so far? What comments we have so far there?
Well, Michael said voting is what matters, perhaps more than choosing the ideal candidate, as governments are complex structures with countless decision makers. I think you briefly touched on something like that. Scruffy said the left loved Trump before he ran in 2015 or 16. Oprah, Whoopi, all of them. Some people were asking for clarification on what TDS was, and somebody typed in Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, you got to see there was an ad made by Nicole Shanahan, who was RFK's running mate in the beginning, about Trump derangement syndrome. You got to see this. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But it really is. I hate to say it, but the truth is that, and you see the world so backwards. The Harris campaign is based on complete hatred. We don't know. The policy is not discussed. It's just that man is bad. That's what it is. And what I'm afraid of is that we know the Torah tells us that there are two things that drive a person very, very strong. Abraham woke up early in the morning to saddle his own donkey to go and to bring Isaac as an offering to God because of his love of God. But Bilam went to curse the Jews. He got up early also, and he did it himself. He had a lot of servants. But hatred could also go and push a person. So right now, there's a lot of hatred in America, unfortunately. And so this is a very difficult. I mean, it's the situation in the States right now and the world at large is really unfathomable. When the election is over, half the country will be miserable. I don't remember that. I don't remember that growing up. It's like, all right, it's whatever. It's politics, and this, Clinton is this, but he's gonna find a way to work with these guys and those guys, and they're all gonna find some kind of way to navigate. It's not like that anymore. It really is. It's two countries. It's not. America is not one country any longer, and that's a major issue. It's really the issue of the globalists on one hand, which is a certain goal, and it's not pretty. It's not. I see. I had trouble. That's why I wanted to hear if any Harris supporters. I really have trouble understanding. Like when I see the stuff that's going on, it's so obvious that this stuff is a lie. Whatever.
Very good point, Rabbi. Michael's asking, who follows Noahide law better, Trump or Harris?
Very good. Very good question. So I want to say this, and this it's fascinating because people don't know. Well, who do Jews vote for? So I want to tell you Jewish law. I'm not making this up. This is Jewish law. Jewish law, it is forbidden to vote for a Democrat in Jewish law. It's not opinion. I heard that from my rabbi years ago. It is forbidden because since they support laws that are contrary to the seven Noahide laws, okay, gay marriage, abortion, therefore, since there's a law that you're not allowed to cause a Noahide to do a sin, that is a Jewish commandment. You're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a person who doesn't know, called stumbling in front of the blind. It's one of the 613 commandments. You're not allowed to vote for a Democrat because their policies run completely contrary to the seven Noahide laws. So that's the answer. Now, unfortunately, as the world has moved to the left, so the discussions have changed. In other words, abortion has become, all right, yeah, that people have accepted it. Trump's position on it has been very interesting. I think it was a wise decision. It wasn't a religious decision. It was a wise decision, I think. He said, bring it to the states, leave it with the states. Now, even though that's not really doesn't fit with the Noahide laws, but it is good because if a state, if the country, and this is very problematic, when the country held that abortion was okay on demand, so you had a problem because you're living in a country that is breaking the Noahide laws. And you have a problem on your hands now because what do you do? What do you do? Since the seventh Noahide commandment is to establish courts that will maintain the six Noahide commandments, and one of them is do not murder. So you got a problem. How can you set up a court and a system, a governance that is contrary to seven Noahide laws? That's why you can't vote. It's forbidden to vote for a Democrat, 100%. Now, again, I'm not because the party. I don't care about the parties. I'm not a Republican. I don't care anything about the parties, but the policy that supports things that are against the seven Noahide laws, you're not allowed to vote for that. So what happens is that so by saying that it's a state decision, it is a very interesting approach that Trump was saying. I mean, I was recommending that, but not if I wouldn't take the job as president of America because it wouldn't work. But it was pragmatic because Trump is bottom line is a businessman. That's what he does. That's what people don't realize. His whole thing is, let's make a deal. He's going to figure out a way, and making a deal means not everyone is happy with the result, but you're giving something, you're getting something. What do you want? So by him saying that it's a state's decision is very wise because it appeals to the people that feel this is such a right. By the way, I'm not trying to denigrate the people who have. There are people who have serious issues. If a person is pregnant with, in a God forbid, in a rape situation or something like that, or a child that's seriously deformed, these are very difficult questions. But what I don't understand about the whole abortion issue, I don't understand how do people say it's my decision. Like I have a simple question for you, whoever supports it's my decision. Pro-choice. Do you know when life starts? Did you learn the Talmud? The Talmud is a whole discussion. When does the soul and the body connect? Do you know this? How do you say things you don't even know? I don't understand. Like for me, and again, I don't want to comment with the law on exactly when now because it's a very complicated discussion. But if I didn't know that, then what I would say is, well, I don't know. I wouldn't be so certain. I would say, well, it depends. I know that there's a life inside of me. If a person's pregnant, they know. So what would be the point? When would they know that they could or couldn't do this? So I don't understand that. Now, I mentioned to you once there was the Surgeon General of New York in the 70s, this guy named Coop. He sometimes he had certain questions that came to him, life and death questions, and he said, "I can't answer this. How do I know?" But there's a rabbi, Moshe Feinstein in New York, and I'll go ask him. Yeah, you should call up when people ask certain questions about life and death, you have to know who you are to answer that. And if I have a life and death question, I refer that to the leading rabbis of the generation that have the responsibility and the ability to answer that. So what happens is, so Trump is a pragmatic thing. It's pragmatic statement of the states aside. Now, why is that? So it helps, he keeps his votes, I guess. It's not a religious position, but it has a tremendous advantage because, like, I don't know what you do when you live in a country that they're on the law of the land is against the seven Noahide laws. Now, if you live in a state and you live in California, okay, you can move to Texas like the rest of California is doing. You have an ability. If your state is a state that does not value the sanctity of life, then you could move. It's easier to move from state to state than from country to country. I think it's very pragmatic. So the bottom line is that even though the Republicans today, some of their policies are not precisely in line with the Senate, but the Democrats, unfortunately, since already, the 70s when the world changed, because the world changed a lot, as you realize. The 70s, I Love Lucy, there was a rule you had to have one foot on the floor when you were sitting on the bed at all times. You know, you watch a television show today. Sometimes if my wife and I say, "Hey, let's relax and watch something," so for 13 years old, I'm like, I can't watch this. You crazy? Some for 13 years old today is toxic already. We have to watch out what your kids are seeing because the whole world is out of whack. So the answer is that the policies that are supported by Kamala Harris and that are completely against seven Noahide laws in many areas, and therefore in Jewish law. I'm not saying my opinion. Jewish law is forbidden to. And that's why it's an interesting thing because people don't know, I told you when President Trump was the president before, so there was a call that the president always makes to the rabbis on before Rosh Hashanah, before high holidays. So I was invited to one of the calls, and I said I didn't understand how come I was never invited when President Obama was the president. I wasn't. How come I didn't get my invitation then? And then I understood what happened. What happened was that when President Obama was calling, he was calling the reformed and conservative Jews. Conservative does not mean conservative politically. It's a different terminology, but it means the Jews that don't necessarily follow a traditional halachic Jewish law system. So that's who he was calling. And Trump realized that was not his base. As a matter of fact, they were boycotting him. Insane. Because in Jewish law, you cannot do that. You have to show, I told you, God even commanded Moshe to show honor to Pharaoh. So you boycott the president of the United States, you're crazy? So he called the Orthodox rabbis. And so you have to understand something. And maybe Rob, since this, because Orthodox Jews, 95%, 97% vote for Trump. Okay. So what are the few percent there? I will tell you something. There are a small minority of Orthodox Jews that are in a camp where they're trying to understand Jewish law in a very sort of pluralistic or diverse, I don't know what the word is, context. So they don't like Trump's style either. It's not. But if you look, there is not one leading rabbi in the world that does not say vote for Donald Trump. Not one. That should give some. So if somebody is watching this who is a what we call a modern Orthodox Jew keeps Jewish law, think about that a minute. Why are none of the maybe your local rabbi, nice guy, maybe he has some problems with President Trump, maybe, but none of the leading sages, the leading rabbis in the world are saying not to vote for Trump. No, none, not one. A few low level, people, but not a leading sage because it's very clear. And for a Jew, for certain, I mean, once President Obama's like last gift to Israel was to stab him in the back in the UN. And if any Jew doesn't understand the Kamala, which is the letters of Amalek, same letters of the name of Amalek, Kamala. So any Jew doesn't realize that she's sending you up the river as soon as she gets in, with her double talk about they have a good the terrorists have a good point too. Okay, all right. So I tell you, Jews should certainly be aware of that. And anyone should be aware of that because, as Iran says, Israel is the little Satan, America is the big Satan. So it's not the war is not against Israel. Actually, they actually for years they fought the Christians more than the Jews. So that's so the answer to the question is yes. The position of the Democrats is forbidden in Jewish law to vote for because it's contrary to the seven Noahide laws. Yep. Good question. What else we got? Yeah. Mendel Kessin is very good. Yeah, he's very good. He's definitely on the ball with these things. I think I actually heard him say, he talked about the three levels of a Moloch, as you're referring to Tar. So it says, because really you have Esav. Esav is the beginning of the process. Esav is the one who makes a new philosophy. Okay, his philosophy is the laws of war. He is the Western world. He's Rome. Okay, he's got a son named Eliphaz. And Eliphaz has a son named Amalek. So Rabbi Kessin wanted to say that you have a similar process of this three-step process with Obama and then Biden, who is clearly a continuation of Obama's policies. I mean, Biden really, in that sense, was even more successful than Obama because he was clearly mentally challenged with senility, and he was a political he was a politician for many years, and you'd point him at something, and this is what the soup du jour is, and this is what so he would scream and yell at that. So they just pointed him in this direction of this woke thing, and he said, yeah. So much got done because there was no one to blame because he wasn't there, and we didn't know who the cronies were behind the scenes moving the things. And so Mendel Kessin says that Kamala could be the third step in this process, which the third step is usually the most powerful step in the process. So, in the good side, you have Abraham, Isaac, and they come to Yaakov, to Jacob. And on the negative side, you have Esav leading to Eliphaz and leading to Amalek, who is just the embodiment of that. Again, I don't know if that's true or not true, but it's true in terms of the concept that these three people are certainly one system. And you have to understand that, because I don't think that President Biden really understood that. I don't think he ever understood what was going on. Obama had a different vision of the world. His global his global village vision. He propped up Iran. He literally propped them up because he liked the idea. His middle name was Hussein for a reason. So he believed that there needs to be a new world order where America is not the policeman and the defender of good. Rather, it should be a shift in the power, and the Muslim world, and not even the Muslim world that would be functional. The Muslim world would be dysfunctional. Iran, if you would have taken the countries that wanted to make peace with Israel, like Trump did, you have what to talk about. But he went for the terrorists. So that was intentional. That was not an accident. That was part of Obama's worldview. That he didn't appreciate what they called the ugly American and that view of the world. He wanted to have a different world order, and he pushed towards it. And Biden was very strong in continuing that. And Kamala, Mendel Kesson is right, will be even more off the charts, because Biden at least was like the old school. So kind of in a place in him, he felt he shouldn't abandon Israel, even though he sold Israel up the river. But still, he felt, okay, I got to do, I got. With Kamala, all bets are off. All bets are off because she doesn't have that, and the Democratic Party doesn't have it either. And really, that's the thing you have to understand, and it's very hard to, I heard a senator from Texas, I think Chip Roy, and he said something very simple and it's very true. They're calling Trump and his supporters Nazis. Who is the one who's supporting Israel? Who's the one who wants to abandon Israel? Now, that might seem simplistic, but it's true. It's true in the deepest sense of the word. That I always tell you that the verses tell us that whoever is an enemy of Israel is an enemy of God. And so therefore, when you see someone against Israel, you must know these people have a different agenda. And as I told you many times, the woke agenda is a war on God. There's no, if you understood the Torah portion this week with the Mabul, with the flood, you read things. These people, it said they had all of the benefits of the world. The world, it rained once in many, many years, and that's all they needed. They had the weather was temperate all year round. There was a question as a discussion, was the world's axis the same? Did it change? They lived in a world that the weather was temperate. They lived long lives. God blessed them with everything. And they said, well, what do we need God for? We want to do our own thing. That's literally what's happened in the world today. God has blessed the world with such wealth that kings didn't have this. Who doesn't have running water in their house? Who you just call up and you order your food and Uber comes and brings it to your house. I mean, like, I'm in Israel now. I got to get used to it. I'm like, oh, I want something on Amazon. Okay, I'm gonna press it at night. I get it first thing at my door in the morning. Isn't that the craziest thing in the world? So God's given you this blessing. What is the woke philosophy? Woke philosophy is you're not going to tell us, God, who we are and what we must do. We decide. And that's why I always tell you the fact of the trans issue is a central issue in the woke platform. Because when you say that the most obvious thing, if God made you a man or made you a woman, and that's who you are, and you say, God, it's not up to you. I live in Disneyland and I believe I'm this. If I say I'm this, then I must be that. What do you mean? There's no reality? There is no structure? That's exactly what's happening. And this is literally the traits of the generation of the flood. Really is and that's why I tell you in terms of the process of the world, we know that at the end of time it says the generation will be the lowest. So even though on the internal level things are being fixed up because there's a lot of mitzvot being done and there's an awakening. The Jewish people, you have to understand something very amazing. And I tell this to Jews all the time. If I meet a Jew that's a secular Jew, I say to him, I want you to understand something. If you go back 4 generations, maybe 5 at most, maybe 4, from that point, every one of your ancestors was an observant Jew all the way back to Abraham. That's a fact. That's a fact. 1850, when the Reform movement started, that's when there were Jews started saying, we're going to do something else. But no Jew said that before. Where were you going? I mean, this was like, yeah, you kept it. Now you'll tell me, it's true. In the Bible, in the stories in the Book of Kings, there were times where they were up and down, but that's true. But the nation, when they were in the land of Israel, knew what it was. There were parts where they had evil leaders that pushed them away. But then from the time of the exile, okay, which were thousands of years, the Jews were functioning in their own community, And so what happened was, for thousands of years, the Jews had always kept the Torah. There was nothing else. There was nowhere else to do. And that's like shocking for people because they say, wait a minute, so what happened? Well, what happened was there was a shift in the whole world. And that was not unintentional. That was planned out. God shook the world up, and there's a test the Jews had to go through. That was started in the 1800s, where Jews started moving and leaving their tradition. And I want to tell you something, because this was a very interesting thing about someone just asked before who to vote for Trump or Kamala. This I'm going to tell you now. This is bizarre because it may sound exactly opposite what I've been saying. You have to have the wisdom to know what to do. But when there was the Napoleon was spreading throughout Europe, there was a discussion the rabbis had: who should we pray for to win, Napoleon or the Tsar? Now, what's the two sides? The two sides are the Tsar has been torturing and punishing and been evil to the Jews for years. And Napoleon wants to liberate the Jews. He wanted to bring the Sanhedrin back, to give them rights. So who do you think that the rabbi said to pray for? So you would think for Napoleon, but most of the great rabbis said not. They said not. You know why they said not to vote for Napoleon? Because they saw that it was going to usher in a time which was going to lead to the secularization of many Jews. And that's what happened. As the Enlightenment spread, and as Jews couldn't go to universities in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, when they were allowed to, all right, so then things changed. And the assimilation rate for Jews in 1965 was like 1 or 2%. In 67, it was already up to much higher. In the 70s, was much higher. In the 80s, you're over 50%. So what happened was, just historically, I can't prove this to you, but I believe this, that the 1960s came along and there was a revolution. People were starting to see the world differently. And I believe one of the great reasons for that, and maybe even the reason for it, was to get the secular Jews to come back to their Judaism. Because in the 1960s, what's called the Baal Tshuva movement began, where the Jews started returning. Rabbis like Shlomo Carlebach, he used to go and bring Jews in, and now it's happening all the time. These are world events. It happens in the Jewish world and the non-Jewish world. The reason why I'm here speaking to you all is because the Noahide movement is happening now. And that's why I do think this whole thing about Trump with RFK, which I was very happy they got together. I was very happy they got together. I was saying that from the beginning. I was hoping they would. RFK, what he has said about America's health system, I've been saying that for years. And again, it's not rocket science. You can't spray toxic poison on food and tell me it's good for me. You could say, all right, it'll kill small things, maybe it won't kill big things, but it can't be too good. Now that the corporate alliances are so corrupt, and that's why it's amazing. That's why I think if Trump wins, it's going to be a fantastic thing for America, because it's awakening not just of Donald Trump, the fact that he made a unity party with people who are seeing the emperor is wearing no clothing. You know what that could mean? That's unbelievable. They're poisoning your food and water. Someone's who's going to call them out on it. They planned the coronavirus. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was amazing. They had a trial run 2 years before. What do they do in case of? They've had this mRNA vaccine waiting for years, looking for an opportunity to pop it into something. It's been there since the 70s. They never used it. Go listen to Robert Malone, who was one of the founders of it. And he says, listen, they're not using it right. It's not good. So the system is corrupt and rotten to the core. And comes along a guy who's a swashbuckling, New York businessman, and says, I'm going to clean the swamp. And now he's got other people who are saying, we're going to do it too. That's a change in the world, and I hope the world's ready for it. I think it would be a tremendously positive change. That's why I'm here trying to talk about it, because what will happen, again, and I do not make Donald Trump my savior in any way, shape, or form. Okay, I want to be very clear. God is running the show and he's getting us there, as is the best way. But sometimes you can get there in the harder way and get there in the easier way. Israel situation, okay, maybe the fact that if God forbid it's Kamala Harris, so good. So maybe the Jews will realize, and maybe they'll realize you can't count on America at all, because you will not be able to at all. And they'll say, as it says in the Torah, we have no one to lean on but our Father in heaven. And when a person realizes that, good, God will do miracles for us. So either way, it's gonna work out. But there's two methods to go. If you get a person in the strongest power in the world at this point, who understands, let Israel destroy the terrorists that want to kill it. had a great idea to circumvent the terrorists. I'll tell you, when Trump said he was going to make peace in the Middle East, and when he was first elected, I thought, you're an idiot. I really thought you're an idiot. I did not buy that at all, because like the problem is so deep. It's an ancient battle between Yishmael and Yitzchak. And Yishmael, his whole life, could not accept that Yitzchak was the son of who's going to inherit the land of Israel and the blessing of Abraham. He couldn't accept it. The end of his life, it says he repented and he got it. And that's I'm holding out hope for my Arab cousins to say, okay. So I was like, how are you gonna solve the problem with the Palestinians? They're entrenched in the mindset of Yishmael in his bad years. Yishmael, it says in the Torah, would take, and this is why Sarah kicked him out. He used to take his arrows and shoot them at his little brother and say, I'm playing. And she saw this kid was not playing. So he was dangerous. And she kicked him out. So I said, how are you going to do this? The Palestinians, they're the embodiment of the wrong philosophy that Yishmael took for most of his life. But Trump was smart. He said, circumvent them. Get the other Arabs who want to make peace. And he did. That was incredible. I got to tell you, that one I did not see coming. That was very, very smart. That was a businessman at work. That was very good. So what happens is, if practically that happens, so you have someone supporting goodness, Jewish people in the land of Israel, fighting evil, the terrorists, stopping the complete destruction of the country with the inflation. Sending billions of dollars to Ukraine to get all the Ukrainians killed is not a wise thing. It's not a wise thing. It's not good for Ukrainians. In the end, I mean, this is the stupidest thing I ever heard. Because you think Russia's going to lose the war? They're the largest nuclear army in the world. What do you think they're going to do if they're losing? I hate to break the news to people, but if they really are losing, they're going to drop a bomb. That's what they're going to do. So you're not going to win that. So you need to come and create a ceasefire. And you could have done it $200 billion ago and not have destroyed the economy in America, and before they killed 500,000 Ukrainians and 100,000 Russians. It's insane. So this is the emperor is not wearing clothing. The system is corrupt, and I'm not worried in the sense that whoever gets in, the process is going to continue, and God's going to bring the redemption through the process that He chooses. But I think to pray and to make the efforts that it will go according to the most logical system. The candidates that are supporting truth and goodness and not supporting the lies that are going on is something that it behooves us to take part of. Okay, good. Other questions, ideas, comments? Got 2 days. I want to get out. Somebody who is going to vote for Kabbalah, please give me a call, and I will try to explain to you. I think it could be on this chat. We don't have anyone like that, and that would be very telling of it also, because most people here who are Noachides have seen through a lot of lies and are looking at the world with proper glasses and saying this is not true. Yeah, I guess it's called preaching to the choir. Huh? That's what it's called. Yeah, but you got to make your effort. We made our effort today. My wife did. I was teaching in my kollel, but my wife ran around getting all the absentee ballots, to make sure that we took care of what we had to do. So nobody be lazy. It's not the time to be lazy. There's a time to do. It's a time to pray and a time to do and a time to do both. And so you got to pray that the best thing should happen, and God willing. Now there's some other problems here, and this is I think the biggest problem. This is first of all, I mean the media is really a brainwashing machine, and the concern is that, as I told you before, I don't know if the country is worthy of it because people are not thinking, and people really may just be seduced by the lies of the media. That's problem one. But problem two is I really am concerned about the integrity of the vote. And I want to explain this to you. It's just a crazy thing. They had a case right now, I think it was in Wisconsin, where they had this guy in Chinese national, and he voted and this and that. They found out, and they know it's true, but they said the vote counts because there's nothing we could do. That's a problem. Because if you're a little bit crooked, you're not straight. You can't be a little bit off. And that's why, as long as they make the system not paper ballots, not same day, not all that stuff, it is intentionally a opening to corrupt the vote. And once it's corrupt, how do you know? So how do you know? You know there's some cheating for sure. Yeah, you have this case right now, but they had 1,600 people in Virginia. They wanted to keep them on the roll who illegal. So if you have a little cheating, how do you know how much is enough to sway the election? You can't be a little bit pregnant. And this is a very interesting thing, and it's really it's a problem. It's like in Jewish law, the Supreme Court concept comes from the Jewish system. The founding fathers of America, when they created the three branches of government, they looked at the three branches of the Torah system. In the Torah system, we had the leadership, which is called the executive, which was the king. You had the Kohanim, the spiritual leaders, and you had the Sanhedrin, the court. And there is a system where everyone has a certain role, and there are the checks and balances, so to speak, in the system. The king has certain rights, certain things not in relationship to the court and to the priests, the Kohanim. So they each have their role. So the founding fathers of America, they understood that. And so the Supreme Court was supposed to be the legislation of the country. Now, one thing that is very important, and this we saw by Yitro, who was the first convert, but Yitro didn't really understand. Moshe hones in on this point. When they set up a judicial system, Yitro tells Moshe that there's a big deal. They'll come to you, a big thing. And Moshe changes the words. He says a difficult thing. Because in Jewish law, if you have a case where one guy could lose $10 and we don't know the law, that will make it to the Supreme Court. It's not about how big it is. It's about doing what is right. You can't go and have one guy lose out. The American judicial system right now is literally a disaster because you go to court, it costs you $100,000. Every corporation knows they can drag you out because you can't handle it. And it's not the way it works. The court has to be essentially free, as it is in Jewish courts. You pay a minimum fee, a minimum administration fee, because the system has to be the system of honesty. And the Supreme Court should not be dealing with only big cases. Any case that is an issue of right and wrong and that can't be answered in the lower court needs to make it to the top court. And the problem is, this is a very fascinating problem here. And people don't realize this. I think what Trump did with the justices that he put in the court was a very correct thing. He took justices that were constitutional. I forgot the term. There's a term for it. They're I forgot the term. The term for their approach, but essentially they're trying to understand the Constitution, and therefore, certain times they voted against Trump. When you appoint a judge who is politically motivated, that's not justice. That's a fake. If you know how they're going to vote every single time, that's a fake. That's not justice system. That's a system where I had this political view. You have that. The Constitution of America is not a perfect document, obviously. The Torah is a perfect document. So the Sanhedrin have to understand the Torah. But the court has to understand the Constitution. And when the court doesn't, and they go by their political views, that's an abrogation of justice. And so right now, I'm very concerned that this vote, because there's already some corruption. How much? I don't know. And honestly, if you can't rely on that in America, I want to be positive. I do believe either way it's gonna be good, but I do believe if Kamala Harris wins this, America will never be the same. I don't believe America will be the same. Again, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world, because we know that Israel will rise in times of the Mashiach. But we all, as people those who are Americans, want America to be on the right side of history, which is why we need to make efforts to get out and talk to people. Anyway, do you think there's anybody still on the fence? No? Do you think in America there's still anyone on the fence?
On the media distortion. I mean, and I like how you said Kamala's not given any real agenda or position. It's just a lot of showmanship and yeah, a lot of forked tongue speaking for sure.
Right. And that's what it is. And like Fox News will be like, oh, that, but I think she's very smart by doing that, because she can't win on her policy, because she has the same policy as the past 4 years. So what she's winning on, or God forbid would win on, would be the position that he's bad and I'm nice. That's what it is.
Rabbi, I think that the biggest problem is, and you mentioned it about the media obviously really being a part of the leftist approach, and that there are a group, well, first of all, about 6% of Americans don't even know we're having an election. Now, that should blow your mind. The second thing is that, with that being said, there are a lot of people who haven't looked into it, haven't followed it because they're not interested in politics, whatever, and they watch a little excerpt on national news, the major networks, and they are told this is what's going on, and it's not reality, and it either confuses them so they don't know what they need to do because they've been told that the other guy is a bad guy, or they are convinced thoroughly that, well, wow, I can't vote Hitler in. I mean, that's
Right.
clear.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where we're at. But if you really come down to Rabbi Wobe this morning said his lecture was called Vote for God. Obviously, the whole idea is we vote anything that is at least good for our observance of Torah life and what is positive toward the Torah. And he doesn't have to get up and teach the Torah. We're not asking for a national rabbi. We're asking for somebody to run this country on principles that are moral principles that come from the Torah. If somebody is opposite of that, well, I don't need to pay attention to what the media says. I just need to know, what does this candidate, what does their party stand for? Clearly,
Right.
it's antithetical to the wisdom of Torah, period.
Right.
There's no other way around it.
Yeah. I hear it. Very good. Nancy had a question.
Rabbi, I was just going to ask you if God would have Kamala come in and America, we all agree, is never going to be the same. Then how do you see the tshuva of Esau coming in? Because I mean, we saw it kind of like Mendel Kesson said, through a leader, through us coming alongside in that way. Would there be a different way then?
Well, as I said to you before, there's a process going on right now that really has revved up since Corona. It's called Birur. It's the separation. And that's why the Noachide movement is coming to the fore, because the lines are clear now. And so even if, it's not on a national level, because even if it was, even if Trump wins and the country goes in a certain way, but you're still going to have half the country who's going to be on the other side. So it's individual. The descendants of Esau, the Western world, who see the lie of the system, will be coming to their wholeness by rejecting that system. So you get there either way. It's just that system is usually a little messier. It's a little messier because then you really have, you're not. You see, there are people that are leaders, people that are followers. So when the country's moving in a positive way, you could bring along some of the people that are not evil people, but are not thinking. But when they're being controlled by their evil leaders, so then you have a bigger problem. And it's messier. So either way, if you do what's right, you'll get there. We don't have to be afraid of that. But it's very,
Well
very
said,
important
Rabbi.
right now. Yeah, what was you going to say, Dan?
No, I said well said.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what I wanted to talk about. Any other questions? But I want to talk about it today. What I hope, Rod, if there's anything I said that might convince someone on the fence, take a snippet. Let's get it out. If it's something we could talk about that may convince someone, because we got to do our part. And the least I wanted to share with you is the importance of doing this, because very often, like, a person who's, let's say, I'm living in Israel most of the time and this and that. So like, okay, so I could say, you know what? But we can't be complacent. We have to do now. To try to
Rabbi,
do.
I got one last question here from Michael. He says, Rabbi, I actually have a question. He says, Kamala
Yeah.
Harris's husband is Jewish. Doug Emhoff. Is Kamala
Yeah.
Harris also Jewish?
No, she's not Jewish. And again, assuming that he is Jewish, which maybe he is, but again, he is unfortunately amongst the Jews that do not know anything or practice at all their Judaism. He should not be relied on in any way to say anything about the Jewish system, because he is what's called a Tinok Shenishba. He is considered to be a person who was, as if, years ago, they used to steal Jewish babies and raise them in the monastery. There's a lot of laws about that because the kid didn't grow up knowing anything about Judaism. He's like that. He doesn't know anything. He knows absolutely nothing. And if he says a few Jewish words, if he doesn't know anything, doesn't know anything, doesn't practice anything, and assuming he's Jewish, so he has a Jewish soul, but it's trapped in a very confused situation, as is the case with many American Jews. And I want to tell you, it's the great news in Israel. Great news in Israel is that, as I told you, the Jewish people who were all observant for thousands of years, and from the 1850s, we had some problems, and it's been moving towards the return from the secular Jew. That's happening in Israel dramatically, and Israel is like almost already, maybe it is, but soon it'll be majority of the Jews in the world will live in Israel. When that happens, that will signify a massive, massive change in the whole spiritual nature of the world.
Wow.
There are laws that will go into effect that are not in effect right now, that only are in effect when most Jews live in the land of Israel. And that process is happening. And the reason why you have right now in Israel, and this was that terrible thing that was the judicial reform story in Israel, which was misrepresented by the right-wing media also in America. But that was an attempt of the left-wing Jews, who are becoming the vast minority in Israel. That was an attempt of theirs to hold on to power in a similar way that the American elections can be rigged, God forbid, to keep power. That was the same move, because what they did was they were trying to say that the left-wing judges who were set up in the beginning of the state of Israel can appoint their own successors. And the democratically elected majority, which are mostly religious Jews already, that they could not decide the law. That's a game. So what happens is Israel is moving towards that, and October 7th woke up many of the sleeping secular leftist Jews, and it's happening. It's happening in America too. The problem in America is that, unfortunately, many of the leftist secular Jews are actually intermarrying and not becoming Jewish anymore. I had a rabbi who was a friend of mine, was a rabbi in Texas, and he was keeping track of this town. He said the Reformed Jews in this town, majority of them were no longer Jewish. This was years ago. He told me this.
Wow.
So what that means is that one way or another, within the next, I don't know, 50 years, pretty much all Jews will be observant again.
Wow, that's
Pretty
a big
crazy
statement for sure.
Big statement.
The politics today in this day and age, they're starting to more resemble ancient Rome for sure.
Yeah. Yep. But what I'm saying is happening. It's happening both on the Jews returning, and the Jews who are not returning, who live in America, are assimilating, and they soon will not be Jewish, because intermarriage rate over 50%. It takes a few generations. Now, I just want to tell you one thing about that, and I'll end with this. It's a verse in the prophets. God takes from the Jews who become assimilated, he plucks out one, two of the descendants of those people and brings them back to the Jewish fold. So the plan is all in place. And even though some individuals may be lost, the family is not lost. The spirit of the nation is there. And that's what you see in many, many cases. I know many cases of people whose family all intermarried, and they were plucked out, and they found their way back to Judaism. That's happening in Israel. America is a little bit rougher. It's happening in America too. And so therefore, Nancy, don't worry. We hope that Donald Trump wins. We think it'll be the easiest route for goodness for America, and the non-Jewish world, has effects in the world. But we understand that by hook or crook, we're going to get there. And every individual is judged on their personal decisions, not on what the other people voted for. So you stand up and you stand for truth, you stand for goodness.
Yeah,
and
don't
as
tolerate
the world
corruption.
gets crazier, the people who stand up for truth and goodness will have a louder voice and be heard.
Yeah, let's hope, pray for no corruption in the election process for sure.
Yeah.
And we don't want a clean vote, and this week will tell the tale, I'm sure. So
That's right.
on that
We'll be
note,
there.
Rabbi, are you going to aim to be on for next week?
Yeah, God willing,
Tentative?
next week. And those, we are planning our America trip. David, we got to get the band back together. So get George and Ringo, and we're gonna be doing that concert in Houston again, God willing. And we'll be in Florida, Atlanta, and Texas. So we'll be giving out information. Those who want to come to the concert, the get together in Texas. And if you're in Florida or Atlanta, then send me a message, and I'd love to meet up with you.
Yeah, I know our friend Lara's down there in Florida, and she'd love to hook up for sure, connect.
Good.
Anyways.
It was not last time or next time, Lara. That'd be great.
All right. So on that note, I guess we're calling it a day. Till next week. Wish everybody well. Get out and vote, and vote decisively, and stand up for justice, and let's make the world a better place, folks. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so
Good to
much.
see everybody. Thomas, hope to see you again soon.
All right.
See you guys.
Tina,
Bye for
Chaim,
now.
good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Shalom, shalom.